and we'll go from there. All right, welcome to Boulder Insights October Tableau Live session. I'm here with my two colleagues, Chris Cox and Kevin Swearigan, and we are here to answer any of your Tableau questions live, and hopefully we'll have answers to all of them. Sometimes some of the questions are a little harder, so we may not have answers immediately, but we're pretty tenacious like that, and we'll send answers to questions afterwards if we need to. So right now there's a smaller group. We've expected from registrations about 8 more people, but why don't we start by having you all, if you do have a question, Paul, or I can't remember which one I said second. I think I said Dina second. If you have any questions, please let us know. Come off mute or type it into the chat. I also, in the chat, put a link to our question form. So if you ever do have questions any other time throughout the month, you can always submit those to us, and we do our best to try to answer them during the month, but we also save them for our Tableau Live sessions as they come. So Paul, Dina, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask us?
And Heather, I don't know if, oh, never mind. I didn't know if people could unmute themselves or not.
Yeah, they should be able to.
Yeah, I guess I have a very general question. One we could probably fill the whole next hour and then some answering.
Excellent.
We have been working with Tableau for, gosh, probably 6 or 7 years now. And we have a lot of large data sets, and I would say we're intermediate at best in our use of, use of Tableau, bringing in data, creating visualizations and dashboards. So we're, I think, in that very common place of we know how to get things to look certain ways on the screen, and sometimes very creatively, but our dashboards and visualizations can take a while to render. So we know there are efficiency gains that we just don't know about. We've Google searched, we've tried to do different tips and tricks, but I'm wondering what are some pieces of guidance you would give on how to make vizzes and dashboards more efficient with larger data sets.
And more efficient, you just mean render faster, right?
Yeah, really render faster, where people aren't waiting for I forgot what the message is, but where it's basically processing it, and it takes potentially 5 or 10 minutes sometimes for it to actually show what you're trying to see. Yeah.
So do you have certain calculations like level of detail or things like that that would slow down the processing?
Yeah, we use LOD and other things that easily can slow down. I think we know enough to be somewhat dangerous in providing functionality and information. So a lot of times we do have a lot of things going on under the hood, but we aren't really necessarily optimizing on the data source side, or certainly on the viz side. We use a lot of only relevant values. And from what I've understood recently, that can also be a drag on performance. And so in some cases we may have, 1,000 items that would be in the drop down that we're using only relevant values against potentially 10 million records of a data set. So I think we probably have enough in the soup that it creates all kinds of need for efficiency in how we're doing things.
So I can give you a couple hacks, and then Chris can
and I have a couple
probably give you more
great
technical solves on that. Do you guys primarily use filters? Have you tried switching to actions?
We do use actions as well. We have some guided analytics. We've been using actions more and more. So we've been dipping our toe in just about every aspect. We've started playing with set actions. So yeah, we like all the toys, that are out there to play with,
Yeah.
and we try to play with all of them, but sometimes we're playing with them all at the same time.
It might,
And
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I'd try building just one dashboard using actions and see if you get a performance gain. The other thing that we've had success with, and I don't know if it'll work with you, sometimes just the data connections are slow. I don't know if that's the case in your situation or not, but
Yep.
we've actually, depending on the frequency, you need the data. So let's say you need a daily report. Like this doesn't work if you need like an instant report, right? But you can actually run off an extract of the hit and extract of the data saved as a data source on the Tableau dashboard that updates.
Mhm.
And then you're hitting the extract, which is going to load a lot faster than the data source if you're hitting that live. But that really only works if you're like, good with like twice a day poll or, 3 or 4 times a day poll. And then Chris would probably have more insights for you.
Yeah, the extracts have been a big help for us as well when we don't need a live connection. And we're trying to get better with scheduling extract refreshes on the Tableau server side.
Perfect.
We also use Tableau online. So yeah, we're trying to learn as many good ways to use Tableau as possible. And extracts are, a huge help for us. Yeah.
Oh, Chris, you're on mute.
Thank you. So with your extracts, so are these actually published with the workbook, or are they published to the server and then you actually connect live to the extract?
Best way I can answer that is all of the above. We have, of course, created vizzes just with a TWB, and then we've created a packaged workbook. So we've had extracts, hyper files, and even the pre-hyper extracts. So we've tried different combinations of things, and of course, when we publish to either Tableau Online or server, we've used the extracts there. We've really tried different combinations of things to see what would work best for us in different scenarios. So I think our ultimate scenario would be to have a hyper extract that we're refreshing, and then we just go against that. I think that would be the ideal for us in almost every case. Yeah.
So what we're talking about might be a little different. It's your data sources are basically published on your Tableau server as a data source.
Right.
And then you're hitting that from your dashboard is set to live, but you're hitting the data that is an extract on your Tableau server and then refreshing.
Right. And we've done that.
Okay, good.
We've published, although very admittedly, we're still kind of novice in publishing extracts. So there are things that we have tried to do where we hit some roadblocks and we weren't quite sure why we hit them. We were unable to refresh an extract when we published it. There were options that were grayed out, but that may easily have been something that was on our end.
That is definitely, that's going to be your server admin area.
Yeah. And we also have Excel as some sources of data. So we've tried to publish where we could hit against refreshing Excel data. We're not using bridging, I think is the right terminology, to point to a local file. But we've been trying different things to try to figure out what works easiest and what works fastest. And so we have included the published extracts as well as the hyperfile just in local network drives as well.
Yeah. So one of the things. So and this is not like you're trying to get you to switch anything, but so with the so yeah, you're right. The whole Tableau bridge is going to be your option to actually to do that if you use it online. So we actually host our own Tableau server, and so but we actually host it for other clients. So the main difference is that with actually Tableau Online, you can't you actually can't remote control into it and do anything with it because it's
Right.
actually managed by them. So for this same instance, we have actually clients who actually want to use Excel um, as their whole data source. But what we do is we say, okay, well, there's a couple different ways we could do it. One, we could actually put it into like a Google Drive, and then we can actually access it from there. So you don't have to worry about Bridge or anything else, or we can have it in Dropbox. There's a lot of different ways we can get actually around that. But that's not something that you can do with actually Tableau online. The other thing too is if you have a combination of if you have a combination of like local files and like other extracts in the same workbook, when you're doing your refresh, it's either all succeed or none. So if one of them can't refresh, and it's going to break the rest of them too.
Yeah. I'm curious to know just quickly, I know we've had someone else pop on, so I'm sure other people have questions too. I'm curious to know for where you, oh, and I know Heather, you had some feedback as well on the efficiency stuff.
Kevin hit all my check boxes, so he
Great,
got
great.
it.
Good teamwork. But I'm curious to know, when you host Tableau server for customers, are you using AWS as the server, or do you have your own hardware basically?
And we're using it's a Google Cloud.
Oh, okay.
And there, it's going to come down to the proficiencies. Like if you guys spin up your own, it's really what's the knowledge on your team. AWS is going to work just as well as Google.
Yeah. Okay. And I assume Azure and that type of thing as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
You really,
Cool.
I mean, they're all so damn stable now. You can't go wrong.
Yeah. It's a good problem to have. All right.
I know, right?
Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it.
You got it. Good luck.
So, Chris, any other thoughts that you have for Paul? I know we used to have a performance tool that we had created a long time ago, like 5-6 years ago. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of comes down to, it's really hard to say, hey, here's the way to fix every performance, because it's really, I mean, there's some, like, I think we covered all the main things, the kind of the normal gotchas, but I think what it comes down to is so just the whole design of the dashboard, right? So we can look at the dashboard and we can tell you, oh, you know what, you're trying to display like 5 million marks on this.
Yeah.
So it's typically around, trying to answer questions in order that your users would need them, and then not trying to actually display everything at once.
Yeah.
So a lot of times doing like the whole guided analytics approach might work, or, there's just kind of different ways to do it. It's hard to really tell you, hey, this one thing will actually fix all your problems.
Yeah, makes sense.
So one option too, Paul, I'll put some information in the channel afterwards. We do have some coaching and mentoring sessions. I'll put the link to get on Chris's calendar. Sometimes a screen share and being able to see your data can be really helpful for us to start to diagnose. Just hearing the number of drop downs you have, certainly the first thing we do as consultants is get rid of your filters as much as possible. Yeah. Typically you're more interested in the top of your data or the bottom of the data, and the middle doesn't matter as much. So if we can swap to those dashboard actions, that can often be helpful to get there. But I think that's what I would probably recommend next. So.
Yeah.
Great.
The other big gotcha is your frequency. Like, don't go for real time unless you need it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't know your business. So I know we're working with, just this morning, we had a call with the manufacturing plant, and they often do need real-time data. Sometimes they don't. If it's, absenteeism, that can be at the end, but if it's performance, they do need that real-time data. So depends on your industry too. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. my dear Dinah, I can't remember which one I said second, so I'm just going to say both. In the chat, we have a couple questions. So Chris and Kev, I think we can all handle these as well. The first question would be about is there any way to add different marks to the same chart? More than two, like a bar, lines, and dots, for example. So kind of same axis kind of stuff. She knows about dual axes or even grouping the measures so they have the same marks, but what about different ones? And so just some thoughts around having 3 marks on a dashboard. And I don't know who wants to take it. I have some ideas, Chris, I'm sure you do.
You said for 3 marks on a dashboard or
on a sheet, so on the same axis. So is there any way to add different marks to the same chart? So I have a couple ideas, but I'll let you kind of tackle that first, Chris.
It's not simple. Hang on. And I wouldn't, so you can do it. It's a total hack. Let me, hang on a second. Let me find, I got the email that I know I want to give you. Hang on 2 seconds. I'm trying to find, I have this saved somewhere.
Yeah, I could pull one up, Chris. This is not quite exactly, but I'll share my screen while you're looking. So the first question I would ask is, why do we want 3 different marks? So what's the question you're trying to answer? We always say dashboards and visualizations are like jokes at our company. So if you have to explain them, they're no good, right? So we don't want it to be too confusing. But this is a chart that we often talk about in our visual analytics class. And this is one where we have 3 different marks that are showing. And the way that this is done, it's not a line, a bar, and another mark, but this is actually a dual axis. And these are called simplified bullet graphs. So these lines are your goal, these are your actual, and then the shape on the dual axis is telling you if it's gone up or down over that time. So that's, you know, one option that you can look at. That one's a little busier. Let me go to the one that just has a few bars. So it is a combination of a dual axis, but also adding a reference line in. And so to be able to do that, you have to have your budget as your bar, and then you bring your actual that you want, your actual as a bar and your budget onto detail. And then you have the ability to add that as a reference line. So if I look at the reference line, I'm then using that previous period as my reference line. And then to get the shapes, the different types of shapes, you're using a calculated field, looking at if the measure improved or didn't. I'm actually working on a client project right now where I'm using the shape, and you put that shape on color and you put it on to shape. And that allows you to kind of choose if it's improved or worsened. That was one use case that I've had. Another use case, and Chris, just let me know when you
I got it.
are here. You got it? Okay. Is using both a combination of a combined axis and a dual axis. So I can show that when Chris is done. Let me just stop sharing my screen and we'll let Chris show.
This is the total hack that you don't want to do. So I hear you that you think you do it. I would strongly urge you to not do it. There are reasons why these are hard to do. I'll show you this one. So here, so so it's the same thing you're asking. If I want a different shape or a different color, something. So I need to have, you know, multiple things. So you can do multiple dual axis. So here I have just these fake fields. I have header, I have 1 and then header 1, 2, header 2, 3, header 3. So this gets me all of my different cards that I want to use. But so now I can color this one differently than like this one, right? And so these are just these little hacky little formulas. So just ones, you know, really all it is. So 1 header and 1 is just a 1. So it just gives me some way to put these up here so I can have multiple dual axes. Does that make sense?
And Dina is saying to compare, the reason she wants more than 1 mark is to compare actual versus budget, prior and forecast data. So
actual versus budget
Actual budget, prior, and forecast data, all for, let's say, hours or revenue, looking at actual hours versus budget versus what was done prior, what was done forecast. So my advice hearing this use case is that it's probably better in a dashboard than a worksheet. Sometimes we try to make our worksheets do everything. And if you could combine some of those things, you might be able to uncover more information in a dashboard when they're pivoting. That's my first instinct, Chris, but I'm not sure if you have additional thoughts around that as well.
Yeah.
That maybe we have an actual versus budget, simplified bullet graph or bar and bar, and then another chart looking at, year over year or forecast, and another chart with forecast, and have them all pivoting with each other is what I'm envisioning in my head.
Yeah, I think so too. So just like something you could show us. Can you show us what your data looks like, or is it?
I think we'll have to take our firstborn. I'm not seeing any. No, not right now. Sorry. She's saying, yeah, it's good. But I think, I have some good coffee store data that, I can think through. Do you want to try to build anything out, Chris, and kind of show a forecast versus year over year at all? Is that something we'd like to do? We do have another question as well. And I know we had a person, and I do have budget data. If you need that, Chris, I can shoot you a data set over or open it up on my end.
I'm not sure. I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure.
Yep, you're sharing.
Okay. So you can turn on. So I'm assuming that your whole forecast data is not like something that's like made by Tableau, right? You have a forecast that's happening after some period of time. Is that accurate?
I totally get what you guys are saying. Just some picky users, and curious if there was a way to show them all together.
Yeah, I'm sure there is, but it's.
Yeah.
But it's actually hard without understanding what the data is.
Yeah.
To have the data set, I could show you the best way to do it. So is it like a trend graph you're doing, or is it by product? Because so talk about budget and actual. Typically, what we do is this: we say,
She said she'll send a sample, Chris, and it's by region.
Okay.
Often.
Let's do this region, and I'm just going to pull in, sales and profit, even though these are not the right. Actually, let's do it this way. I'll do create sum of sales times, let's say 0.9%, and we'll call this budget. Okay, so if we have sales and budget on one chart.
So what Chris is doing, this is called a bar and bar graph. So we first created a combined axis where he got the double rulers, and then he took that measure names onto color, measure names onto size, and then go to the analysis menu and turn off the stack marks. So those were the steps that he just took there.
I went a little fast, sorry.
That's okay. Walk him through it.
So I would do this, right? And then if we said, okay, I'm going to duplicate my budget, and I'm going to call this edit, call this forecast, and we'll say it's by 1.2. Okay. So now I have forecast on detail, and I could add a reference line to forecast per cell, and we'll even put the value on it. So.
But it didn't change value for some reason.
Oh, did the?
Oh, you click it, but yeah, there you go.
So maybe it's like that. So maybe that's where it is. So here's our budget, here's our actual, and then here's your forecast.
And if you want to show prior year, Chris, I've seen bar and bars with 3 lines. You could do a separate reference line. I think the 3 might get too busy, but you could have the prior data if you want to swap that, and we could do another reference line with that as well.
There it is.
Yeah. and then you could use a reference line for one, if you want to still use a reference line. Those are kind of the ways we think about. I hope that's somewhat helpful. And I totally get that there's picky users out there. We sometimes, have to show them the other ways to say, I hear what you're saying, and we can do that, but here's a better way too, that we often have that same concern with clients too. So yeah, okay. She's saying, thank you so much. She had another question, totally different. With what would be the best approach when we want to show dates for a fiscal calendar. For example, January through May have 4 weeks, but June has 5 weeks, and this is defined by the finance team. Every year could be different. Do we need an Excel mapping or something like that?
Just change it right here. So
as long as it starts on the first of the month. Is it starting on the first of the month? Your fiscal year? Not every time. So that's where it gets tricky. That's where we've had to do a blend before, Chris, and do a separate calendar from what I
think if it doesn't start on the first, it makes it a little bit harder. But I think now with having relationships, you shouldn't have to do your blend. You should be able to relate those in. So you might have to have like a separate calendar and then just join on that, or join or do the whole relationship piece. I think I haven't actually tried that, but yeah, I think that would actually work if you have that separate calendar that you just pull it in.
Yeah, that fiscal year option that Chris showed, it's just right-clicking on the date and going to fiscal year. That can get you pretty close. I know when I work with government organizations, they often start on like the 3rd of October. It's like the first Monday of the month in October. So I know that can be a little bit tricky. There are some parameters too I've seen people use to be able to switch between a calendar year and a fiscal year, but it doesn't sound like you need to switch at all, that you just are going to be keeping that fiscal year. So you're thinking of the best way to connect to fiscal year. But I will try to search to find you some good knowledge-based articles as well on how to create those fiscal year calendars. I do know we had another person join. Oh, it looks like he joined and left already. So I wasn't sure if there was any questions from that end as well. So Chris and Kev, anything fun this last month we've been working on? It's actually been 2 weeks since our last event that you might think that could be of interest that we might want to show. I know we have been doing we've already done the colorblind palette switching and swapping of that. Paul, is there any other questions that you have that you'd like us to answer or go deeper down into those pieces?
I'm sure there are, but right now probably not. But yeah, I would love to be able to, reach out to y'all in the future with questions for sure.
Great. Well, since you brought that up, let me bring up our website and show you how you can get in touch with us too. I'll go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll talk about a couple other ideas perhaps. So anytime you go to our website, boulderinsight.com, you're going to notice this red pill in the corner. So right down here that you'll see it show up. When you click on that, that gets you directly to Chris's calendar. And the free project consultation is an option for us to just help you and, help us size up what your needs are and can help. And then these other sessions are paid sessions. So it can really sometimes get you a whole lot further when you get a little time with Chris to get you going. We also, each of us on our team have Calendly options as well too, but I think starting with Chris is a great place to go, and then we can help you from there. We do have something that we've been starting this year. We've really made a shift, and why we started the Tableau Live in the first place is that we find that people will take the training courses. I'm the director of training here for Boulder Insight. I teach on behalf of Tableau and on behalf of our own clients. And we really do a great job of setting the fundamentals and teaching you how to make the different charts. But where there's a gap is that leap from watching videos and going to trainings and then applying that to your own data. And so what we found is that people need some coaching and mentoring. And so it's why we started these Tableau live sessions to try to answer your questions at least once a month, where we're here as a trusted advisor to you all. But we also are finding that we have more and more clients that have been doing these hour coaching sessions with us, and they need more. And so we do have a coaching and mentoring agreement now that you can enter into us with, that you have 5 hours a month at a reduced rate from what you'd be paying on the one-offs with Calendly. And you can do 5 or more hours a month. We just ask for that minimum of 5. We put you on that retainer, and then you get added into our sprint calendar and schedule with our team to be able to help you with your own data. And typically we get an NDA in place as well, so we can start seeing your data, playing with your data with you to get you along the way. So we are happy to come in and solve problems for clients anytime, but our ultimate goal is to make you the ninja of your data, so you can carry that across the finish line. And we find the coaching is getting people through that gap. So that's also something we'd be happy to talk to you guys about. You are always welcome to use that question form and get the free advice from us once a month. That's always an option for sure. But we find these deeper dives are getting people much further faster at a better rate than you can on your own. I will say Chris was really busy on another client project, and I was working on a client project on my own yesterday. It probably would have taken me 2 hours with Chris instead of 5 hours by myself. So I find working with Chris is super helpful myself. As a trainer, we are awesome trainers, but we live in a really awesome fairy tale land where all our data is clean and columnar and ready to teach with. And we know that that's not the case when you're working with your own data. So it's always humbling to me, having been using Tableau for 6 years and being pretty kick-ass at it, I do say, but I get humbled by real data every day when I start working with client data, as I've shifted more during COVID to consulting. So those are definitely some options to keep in mind. Dina, when I'm talking about yours too, I do think that up or down arrow with what Chris had shown you, I think using the combination of a bar and bar, then the target, as I'm just thinking that through as a line, and then the up or down arrow could be really interesting for you from previous year. So you could say, did it go up or down from the previous time frame? I think that would get you a chart that's not too overwhelming. So similar to that prototype management that I was showing earlier. So if you need some support with that, if you want us to send you that Twibix file with those options, I'm happy to do that too. So yeah, any other, well, I'll show one thing. Let me open up. Whoops, I keep trying to reduce my screen and I can't do that. Let me get to a file. One of the things that's interesting, actually, I'll just open the one I was in and share this screen. We have really amazing staff, and I have really amazing students that I work with often. And what I find though is that no matter how good you're in Tableau, there are certain efficiencies that people just don't always use or understand how to do them fast. So they've been doing it by using Show Me and other things. So since you talked about combined axes and things, I just want to point out, I've come across this a couple times this week with some of our clients and some of our own team too sometimes, that when you do want to create a text table, for instance, with columns. So let's say that I want to create a text table where I'm looking at my category and my subcategory. So I've got my headers in there. And now I want to start to have separate columns of data just to start to play with the data and see it. What you can do is you bring your sales onto text or out here. But let's say that I also want other measures to be able to show up. What I see people often do is they start to drag them into here. And you'll start noticing when I do that, here's my profit ratio and things, they all start to stack. So the way to do this, it's the same as what you were doing, what Chris did with a combined axis, but this is with a text table. You literally are going to take your other measure and you drag it right on top of the other measure here until you see Show Me. And so we have a new staff person and he was moving real fast and he couldn't get Show Me to show earlier this week. And I had to just say, whoa, slow down and I'll show you. So you just drag it into where that box is when you see show me, you'll start to get those different columns that are showing. The same as if you would want to do this as a bar chart. I would have, let's say, my product, my category, and my subcategory again. But this time I want to do it as a bar. I could take my bar chart for sales, bring that up to columns, and let's say that I do want to compare that to my profit. I can now drag that on top, and it's just the same as doing show me in the middle here. You don't want to do that in this case. Instead, you're literally bringing it on top of the measure. So this is called a combined axis. The other one was a combined axis as well, but it's with a text table. When you get those rollers, then you can drop them. And what Chris was doing with his bar and bar graph was taking then this measure names. If you remove measure names from the column, it's going to stack the bars. If you leave measure names up there and make a copy by hitting Control and then dragging that to color, you're going to get different colors for each of them, and they won't be stacked. So it depends on the type of chart that you want. But if I remove it, now that I have it on color, it's stacked. Then the next step Chris took was to drag that onto sales. Then go to your analysis menu, go to stack marks, and turn that off. And there's your bar and bar. So just, keeping in mind that how you go about building things, a lot of times you'll get your measures and things that you need in, and then you just start playing with these different chart types. That will get you there more efficiently. So one of the things that I can send out is I do have a workbook that I created for a Tableau user group. We run the Boulder Tableau user group as well. We're really committed to people succeeding as well. I do have a workbook that I can send out if you all are interested on using more than one measure in the view. And the nice thing about this workbook is that it has a starter, and then it has, let me get rid of show me, it has the solution, and it tells you how to go about building these step by step. So starting with that combined axis, doing a combined axis that's stacked, doing a bar and bar graph, doing a bar and bar graph that's not doing a combined axis, but instead as a dual axis, and then moving into bullet graphs and how you bring in that shading. So that's the other option too, knowing that you're looking at progress towards a goal. That shading could come in handy, but I find that the bullet graphs can be a little bit confusing with the shading, but this is showing 50%, 75%, and 100% of goal as well. And then also, doing the dual axis with different chart types. We could even take, if you wanted to bring, I don't know that I'd recommend it, but you could bring in another bar that has kind of our profit. We have budget and profit in here as well. You could bring another measure into this view and start combining things with it. But again, we don't want it to get too busy with it. And then even a dual axis map is all in here as well. So this is created, ready to go. Scatterplot also is using more than one measure in the view to look at correlations. So if you'd like this workbook, just let me know in chat and we'll send this out as well. But just making sure you know those step by step so you can be more efficient to get there, and your different options as well. So I hope that is helpful. Stop sharing my screen. And I do have a gnarly calculation that can be used for a fiscal year calendar as well. So it's definitely a blog post that I found that I'll see if I'll do a little bit more digging and see if I can find one that isn't making you have to do a separate Excel file. I do see a couple calculations with custom fiscal years that I think we could pull together in a workbook and send out as well. But I'll put that in our Slack channel and see what we could come up with. Here, Chris, I'm putting this in here too. But I think that might be one of the options that could be helpful as well. So our goals for what's coming up in the next month is we've been doing these sessions throughout the last 2 quarters now. And so our goal is to start to have recordings from our past meetings with some of the different things that we've shown kind of broken out, so you don't have to watch a whole recording and get to, well, how to do this, how to do that. So our hope is to have those on our YouTube channel and on our website within the next quarter, that we'll have some rhythm to that and start putting that out. and getting into a rhythm of sending out the TWIBIX files that we cover in class as well to you all. But if you all don't have any more questions, if there's nothing else the team wants to show, Chris or Kevin or Timo, I see you're also in here. If there's some cool feature that we can show with sample data, because I know we can never show the cool things we really do with client data, I'd be happy to show that, or we can call it a day with this. So.
Yeah, I do not, but I do think, Heather, for the next Tableau Live, maybe we should put together a quick demo on relationships, because I know that's something a lot of our clients are currently kind of questioning or struggling if they should switch to or not.
Absolutely.
And the benefits of it. So
Yeah,
I think that might be a good approach.
And we do have, we did one with the Phoenix Boulder Tableau user group. So we do have a great one as a leaping off point to start with. So I'd be happy to show that. It's a great idea, Kev. Relationships are and this is a fun one. We talk about how the relationships in your family could be destroyed if you use joins, and your family members think they have a higher budget than they do to spend, and how you don't want to inflate your data with the joins, and using the relationships could really help with that. So yeah, we'd be happy to do that. That's a great idea for next time. So if you do have questions in the meantime, remember to use that questions form. I believe I do have that pulled up. Let me bring that over and share my screen one more time. And we do have this question form. So as questions arise for you, we didn't want you to know we're here to support you in any way we can. It's again, boulderinsight.com/questions, and fill that out. That goes immediately to a Slack channel for us. And so we know that you have the question, and if it's close to a Tableau Live, we'll let you know, like, hey, we're going to answer this live, and let you know. But if it's far away from a session, we'll be happy to do our best to give you some initial answers to that, or get you on our schedule to try to help you troubleshoot it with your own data as well. So, all right, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm hopeful we'll get some more people the next time as well. But it's awesome. We only need one person to join us, and we'll be happy to answer your questions with it. So it will be the same Zoom invite going forward for each month. So if you registered once, you can just fill out that form each month. And if you can't find the form and you do have the Zoom invite, you're welcome to join as well that way, and we'll welcome you each month. So we'll see you next month on the first Friday of November. So have a great Friday, everybody, and a great weekend. Take care.